The NBA playoffs is where players and teams will play their best ball of the season, or some will let the pressure get to them. The pressure of the playoffs is something that really does take over a lot of teams. It really does make them fall short of what their main goal is, and that's winning the championship. And for these three teams that I'm about to name and talk about, it really does stack up a lot with them pressure-wise, and I don't know if they can really overcome that. So who does have the most pressure coming into this playoffs, and do I think they'll crack under the pressure, or do I think they'll overcome the real immense amount of pressure that is in this postseason for them? Before I get into it, I want to let y'all know that it means a ton if y'all go and subscribe, if y'all enjoy the content. It means a ton if y'all would do that for me. Let's get on to the video. Starting off with the Philadelphia 76ers with a dynamic duo of James Harden and, in my opinion, the frontrunner for MVP, Joel Embiid. Now, these two definitely have a history of being on disappointing teams in the past, especially Joel Embiid. James Harden did make it to the Western Conference Finals before in a very unfortunate event. Game 7 missed 27 straight threes as the Rockets did. In his time in Houston, that was definitely a team that most definitely could have won a championship, but CP3 got hurt. They had 27 straight missed threes, and that really pulled back James Harden from getting his, first ring of his career. But with Joel Embiid, he has never even made the conference finals before, and that's really what's making this playoff really has a lot of pressure on it for not only James Harden, but Joel Embiid. For the past 4 years for Joel Embiid and the 76ers, dating back to the 2018-2019 playoffs with the big three of Joel Embiid, Jimmy Butler, and Ben Simmons, they've been really disappointing. That team for sure was very well crafted and very well put together, but unfortunately for Philly, Kawhi hit one of the biggest shots of all time, and that Raptors team also just had very good defense on Joel Embiid, as they did with Giannis Antetokounmpo that very next series as well. And that Raptors team went on to go to the conference finals, of course, and then went on to the finals and won the championship. So if the Sixers won that game 7 versus Toronto and Kawhi didn't hit that insane, incredible shot, we're talking about the Sixers team in a whole new light. Whether they made it to the conference finals or they beat the Bucks and went to the NBA finals, even if they lost, Joel Embiid, if he were to get there prior to the past couple years, we're talking about him in a whole new light. But unfortunately for them, they haven't gotten there. Ben Simmons is gone. They got James Harden. Jimmy Butler left. Al Horford was gone. This team is gone through a lot of changes, and they haven't really gone to anywhere past the second round. They even got swept in round 1 during the 2020 playoffs, which was a complete embarrassment. And even the following year in 2021, they were eliminated in the second round, which, it happens to some teams, but it happened when they were the first seed, and not only just the first seed, they were eliminated by the 5th seeded Hawks. And don't get me wrong, Joel Embiid definitely doesn't play garbage in the playoffs or something. In that 2020 playoff series where they got swept, he was averaging 30 in that series. So let's not put all the blame on Joel Embiid. There's definitely some outside factors. Some might blame it on Doc Rivers or Brett Brown at the time. So it's not all Joel Embiid. I'm not saying the pressure is on Joel Embiid this playoffs. I'm saying it's the 76ers. They got to do something, especially the fact that they're the 3rd seed and at one point were the 2nd seed this season. Joel Embiid been an MVP candidate for the past 3 years, including this year, and he has not really done anything in the playoffs those following seasons when he was an MVP candidate. So, Joel Embiid, he has to prove himself that he can really show up in the playoffs and show these MVP stats. I'm going to translate into the postseason and carry my team to the conference finals at least. And another big thing, a really huge thing, might be the biggest factor for this team, the 76ers I'm talking about, is just the health of their players. Not even just the star players, just the health of everybody. Joel Embiid has always missed at least some time in the playoffs. James Harden was hurt last year with the hamstring. He was trying to play through it, but everyone knew he was not the same James Harden. Even prior to being with the Philadelphia 76ers, James Harden had playoff injuries with Brooklyn and everything. So if James Harden can stay healthy, which even right now doesn't look very promising with his Achilles, he obviously didn't tear it or anything. That would be awful. But James Harden is dealing with some soreness or something with his Achilles. So even going into the postseason, we're only about 7 games away. James Harden's still not healthy, but fortunately for them, he's trying to aim for a return very soon before the postseason starts. Joel Embiid even missed a game, but I believe that was just rest. I don't think it's a big injury. I think he was just trying to rest up because he wasn't playing. He was playing good, but he was kind of playing sloppy apparently. He just wanted to focus up and really rest to, focus on the next couple games to end out the season. So health is really just big for this team, and the fact that they are resting Joel Embiid is a pretty good sign. James Harden just needs to rest the good amount of time so he can come back very healthy for this team. Don't try and rush his return too much, which, they're fully aware of probably. And if they can keep healthy, there's 2 stars. Maxey stays healthy. Tobias Harris, who I've been loving how he's been playing, if he stays healthy, everyone else stays healthy, this team can go far. Because a lot of the times in the playoffs, well, whether you want to say it's luck or not, it does come down to which teams stay the most healthy. And for Philly, it has not been them for the past couple of seasons. The constant disappointments, the constant injuries, and the fact that they do have very good regular season success, with Joel Embiid getting MVP votes every year for the past 3 years, and them being above a 60% win percentage as a team for the past 5 years, I believe, 6 years, something like that. Except for the 2020 bubble year, I think it was just below 59% on a shortened season. They have all the pressure in the world to actually show that the regular season success isn't fluky, and Joel Embiid playing like MVP isn't fluky come playoff time, and their health also needs to be top tier during this playoff run too. And for Doc Rivers, if they don't make this conference finals run, or even make the second round a dogfight, which would probably be against the Celtics, I believe, of course, if they don't get eliminated round 1. So if they don't even make this conference finals run, or that second round make it a dogfight or something, Doc Rivers, he's definitely going to be on the hot seat, most definitely, because he has been getting a lot of criticism, really ever since like the Clippers days. He's been getting a lot of criticism, and Doc Rivers, I can't see him being the head coach of this team if they don't even get it past the second round, honestly. Another team on this list with the most pressure on them, I believe, is the Denver Nuggets, with the other MVP candidate, Nikola Jokic, who's not only just been in conversation to win MVP, he's already won 2 in a row prior to this. And you want to say Joel Embiid needs to prove his regular season success isn't fluky? Nikola Jokic needs to show up this playoff series. They're the #1 seed, and they have been for a good amount of time during this regular season. And Nikola Jokic has been playing phenomenal basketball. Whether you want to say he's an MVP or not, he's still incredible. He's still playing incredible basketball. And you cannot go into this playoffs, especially when you look at their past couple of seasons. They've only made the conference finals once, and that was in the bubble when they had Jamal Murray putting up MJ type of stats. They had to come back down 3-1 multiple times, and that was the way they got to the conference finals, and they still lost in 5 versus the eventual championship Lakers. That was their last time they went into the conference finals, and it wasn't a pretty ride there. They didn't dominate getting into the conference finals. This Denver Nuggets team, I'm not saying they need to dominate to get to the conference finals. As long as they get there, I think that's a win for them. Obviously, they want to go farther. They want to get to the NBA Finals and win it, but for the fact that they've only went to the conference finals once in the Nikola Jokic era. And Nikola Jokic also has been getting heavy praise for the past couple of seasons for being able to carry a Denver Nuggets team who has injuries everywhere to the playoffs. And even last year they were eliminated in round 1, but people kind of brushed it off, rightfully so. He didn't have his 2 best players alongside him with Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray. They were both hurt, but he has them now, and he's still playing like an MVP. This team is great all around, and Nikola Jokic, if he doesn't lead this team to the conference finals with this good of a team around him, and we were looking at those MVPs being basically saying, once he gets his star players back, they're championship contenders, and if they don't look like that in the playoffs, that is the bad sign for not only this team, but Nikola Jokic as a player. And when it comes to the playoffs, his defense is exposed a ton, whether you want to say he's the worst defender in the league or he's just kind of mediocre. Teams will attack him and attack him and attack him. And if you want to be a contender, that's not really a good recipe of success. And the fact that the Denver Nuggets have not really found a good strategy of hiding Nikola Jokic defensively, that's an even worse sign. And in my opinion, if this team doesn't make it out the second round, unless like the second round is like a game 7, just really close series throughout, if they don't even make it to the conference finals, they're the first seed. Nikola Jokic is a back-to-back MVP. They're fully healthy. That's, in my opinion, that's disappointing all around, no matter what. And just like I was talking about Doc Rivers, Mike Malone is probably on the hot seat if they don't even make it to the conference finals too. You cannot have Nikola Jokic playing the best ball of his career, finally having a healthy team around him again, and you don't even do nothing with it in the playoffs. So yeah, so Denver Nuggets definitely have a ton of pressure going into this playoffs. They haven't had much playoff success in the past, and when they did get there, they didn't really do nothing with it, getting a gentleman's sweep on them against the Lakers like I was talking about. And Nikola Jokic, they have this good regular season success, but it just doesn't translate towards the playoffs. So yeah, I think they have a ton of pressure. Another team out west that I think has a ton of pressure on them, the LA Clippers. Steve Ballmer gave up a ton to get Paul George. They gave Kawhi Leonard a ton of money, the same with Paul George, just for them to not really play during the regular season. And even during the playoffs, Kawhi Leonard got hurt in the 2021 playoffs. And the 2020 bubble, that was disappointing. Paul George hitting the side of the backboard. Y'all know the nickname he got during that playoff run. And even last year, they didn't even make the playoffs. They were eliminated in the play-in by the Timberwolves. When, Pat Bev famously were celebrating like he was winning the championship. That was all funny and stuff. But for the Clippers, that wasn't funny at all. That was awful. They didn't have Kawhi Leonard again that playing. And last year, that was just not a good year. But for them, they got Kawhi Leonard back this off season. He's fully healthy. They go into the season, and he's not even playing much. Like, he's barely playing. They are kind of up and down throughout the regular season. As of late, they pick it up, but we still don't know if Kawhi Leonard and Paul George will be able to stay healthy during the playoffs. And even Paul George, as of late, got hurt with the, I believe, hyperextended leg or knee or something like that. And it's already showing they can't stay healthy and be on the court together. Now, I saw a report, hopefully it's not true, but I just saw a report that Paul George, it's pretty optimistic to see him even playing in the first round for the Clippers this season. People are looking at that and being like, wow, that's a very optimistic view for this injury, because, a hyperextended knee, that's not always very good for players. Giannis in the 2021 playoff run, hyperextended his knee and was back for the finals. So, I don't know, but Paul George, that's a big piece of your team. That's literally your second best player, first best player on some nights, and he's going to be gone for a good amount of time. And that goes with what I'm saying with the pressure. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, they are incredible talents, can lead you to a finals run, and they gave up a lot to get these guys. It's just nothing good has came out of this Kawhi Leonard and Paul George experiment for the Clippers. Except for good ticket sales, maybe, I guess, and the Clippers being a team in the league again, like, that people actually recognize. Like, that's basically only that's been good for the Clippers in the past 4 seasons with this Kawhi and Paul George experiment. And of course, they had that 2021 run where they, made the conference finals, made it somewhat of a close series versus the Suns. But even that, I still didn't look at this team and was like, yeah, I think they can give the Suns a run for their money. Like, I knew the Suns were gonna win. Like, they had no Kawhi, it was just Paul George out there. I was like, okay, they can make a nice little run, maybe win a game or two. But yeah, the Suns had it, and they eventually did win that series. So other than that, it's literally been just constant disappointment for this team. And when you're looking at this being their 4th season together, that's getting to the mark where it's like, okay, we have to do something big to make some changes. Like, something has to change fast and now if they don't make it out the conference finals at least. The fact that the Clippers can possibly match up against the Phoenix Suns in the first round, that's even worse for this team. The fact that they got to go against Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, like, that's already starting out the playoffs rough. Some teams that you might think should be on here but aren't. The Phoenix Suns, like I just talked about, them possibly being matched up against the LA Clippers, which would be a fun first round, honestly. The Celtics, Warriors, Cavs, and Bucks. Those, I would disagree with you if you did say those guys have pressure like the top 3 I named. But I do think they have somewhat, like, a little bit amount of pressure. Obviously, for all these teams, if they are eliminated in round 1, that's disappointing. But that's really for every team. But for the Suns, yes, they have Kevin Durant, Booker, Ayton, CP3, TJ Warren, like, all those guys. But they put this team together just a couple weeks ago. And Kevin Durant has been hurt for a lot of this stretch of him being on the team. He's just coming back tomorrow as I'm recording this. So, the majority of these games, he's not been able to mesh with his team on the court. So, honestly, I'll give him, like, next year. Then I'll be like, okay, they got to do something in the playoffs. I'm not going to put pressure on them, but they got to do something. But this year, they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to win a couple games. I don't think there's much pressure on this Suns team as the top 3 I named. The Celtics, I think, don't have much pressure at all, honestly. They just went to the NBA Finals. I don't think there's an insane amount of pressure to go back to the finals. I think most of the pressure is on the teams who are looking to actually make it for the first time, not for teams that just made it last season and won 2 games. Golden State most definitely doesn't have much pressure if we're looking at teams that need to prove themselves that they need to go to the finals. This team just won the finals last season. They're 4-time champions. We know this team can win a championship. They have nothing to prove to us. If they get Wiggins back, that makes it interesting. But as of right now, Wiggins hasn't played in a while, and I don't know. I don't see this team going very far. Maybe like the second round max. But like realistically, what does this team have to prove to us? We know they can win championships. The pressure on the guys who we don't know what their ceiling is in the playoffs. I mean, Cleveland also. A lot of people might put some pressure on this team. They're the 4th seed. They're, you know, a very good team. I believe top 10 in defense and top 10 on offense this season, defensive rating wise, and offensive rating. So, I mean, some people might put some pressure on this team. I don't think they're contenders just yet, but they're still pretty young with Garland and Mobley being one of the core pieces of their team. Still developing. Obviously, Garland is a borderline all-star, was an all-star last season. Mobley's an arguable defensive player of the year this season, but Mitchell was just added this offseason. This team is still good, but just imagine how good this team will be with a whole offseason and next season with probably more added players on the team and everything. So the newly assembled, I'm not going to put too much pressure on Cleveland just yet. Next season, I think the pressure will be on them, but not yet. Now, Milwaukee obviously has pressure to go somewhat far. They're the 1st seed. I think every 1st seed has some pressure on them to do something in the playoffs. But they just won a championship 2 seasons ago. Giannis is arguably the best player in the league. Like, this team does nothing to prove to us, in my opinion. If Giannis were to win no championships for the rest of his career, he's still a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like this team, I don't think they have much to prove to us. Obviously, they should go far in the playoffs. They're probably my favorite to win the finals, honestly, but that doesn't put pressure on them. That's just my own personal opinion. But when I look at teams that haven't done nothing in the past like 4 years, that's when you put pressure on them, in my opinion. So Denver, Philly, and LA, the Clippers, are all there. Their lack of playoff success, but their insane regular season success, but it doesn't translate to the playoffs. Injuries always happen. These unfortunate events always happen. So it starts to get to a point where you've given up a lot and done a lot to complement these players, your core players, and it hasn't done anything. So it gets to a point where it's like, okay, what, like, you got to do something here with this team, and they haven't yet. So if I were to pick one team of the 3, I'd probably pick Philly to overcome this pressure, in my opinion. So that basically wraps up my thoughts on who has the most pressure going into this playoffs. I'm very excited for the postseason. It's going to be a fun ride. Be ready for content not every day. Let's relax, but the content a ton during the playoffs. Going to be fun. If y'all like the video, hit the like button down below, subscribe button, notification bell, so you can be notified as soon as I upload, especially when the playoffs come around. And if you agree, disagree, or you're on the fence with what I'm saying, put it down in the comments below. Be respectful, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace out.